When Game Pass was first offered to the public, I never really considered it. It's generally pretty tough to get PC players off of their beloved Steam platform, myself included. Over the years, however, the Game Pass has grown to have such a ridiculous amount of value that it's really a no-brainer to have Game Pass, especially if you are one to consistently try new games. Not to mention that at least once a year, they offer a crazy deal like getting 3 months of Game Pass for just $1 or something similar to that, which makes it just that much better and easier to cave in and buy the subscription. Game Pass is undoubtedly great for getting to play single-player games without having to purchase them all, but another thing it's great for is multiplayer games and being able to try and experience numerous multiplayer games with your friends. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to say that we appreciate all the support that many of you have given us over the years. And if you enjoy this type of content we put out and our viewpoints, I highly recommend that you consider checking out our gaming podcast, CuboldCast. We upload each and every week, and it's honestly such a passion project for us, and we love being able to sit down and just talk about everything gaming for an hour or two. I recommend checking us out on Spotify, which is where most of our listeners tune in, but also subscribing to our CuboldCast YouTube channel, which is something we are really pushing to grow this coming year. And with all that being said, here are our picks for the best multiplayer games that you can play right now on Game Pass. Total Accurate Battle Simulator is a goofy battle simulator game where you have the ability to play against AI or in online PvP. I actually love this game so much, and generally games that have wobble physics as their main mechanic. If you've ever played the free Battle Royale spin-off game of this one, it's basically that, but you get to create your own battle scenarios to see how they turn out. Not only is the game a lot of fun, but the general atmosphere of the game is fun. Lots of the maps vary drastically and give you a lot of different locations and battle simulations to play with. It's also not really always small scale. You can actually get your army to be pretty massive and continuously grow. Although the game features multiplayer, this is still a super fun game to play single player, so you aren't really bound to play online if you don't want to. Overall, it's a super solid game and a game you'll want to keep installed just in case you ever get in the mood for a fun battle sim. Golf with Your Friends is such a wholesome game that I love to come back to it every now and then to play with friends. I know it seems weird to think that a golf game could be fun, but you don't even need to be a golf person to play the game. It's just simple and wholesome. The golf courses range from super basic to pretty extreme and ridiculous with all kinds of verticality and unpredictable outside influences. So it's definitely not a competitive game. The courses themselves are super fun and they vary a lot. There are a ton of maps and different ways of playing the game. You can change the size of the golf ball, weight, whether you can add jumping to the golf ball, and basically any other factor you can think of. So the possibilities are endless. It's a really solid and fun game to play with friends, and again, it's not a competitive game, so it's really just an all-around good time. I was one of the many gamers that were extremely disappointed with No Man's Sky when it first released. It was such a disappointment, and the lies about the game before its release were ones that I believed in. But over the past couple of years, the game has evolved into such an incredible experience, and it not only lives up to those original promises, but it's so much more now. Although the game has instilled a bit of a bad taste to a lot of the gamers that were looking forward to this game when it first launched, the game really does deserve another chance. You not only get what the game was originally supposed to launch with, but it just has so much to it. You build bases on various planets, you can build a massive trade system and become insanely rich. I mean, even solar systems have their own inflationary systems where you can lower the price of a resource based on the supply and the demand of that resource. It's honestly such an insane game, and not only is it super in-depth, but you get to play with friends and you can meet up with random people around the universe. I could be here for hours talking about all the features, but needless to say, No Man's Sky is an incredible value and it's definitely worth giving a try. Astroneer is a very special game to me, and it'll always be a game that I always view in a high regard. A lot of why I love this game so much is because this game marks the start of the channel for me. If you've been around since the start, you'll remember that our channel originally started making tutorials. All three of us made tutorials on specific games, and mine was Astroneer. And even before making those tutorial videos, this game was a completely unique experience that I had with my friends. So if you don't know what Astroneer is, the game places you and your friends on a planet, and your goal is to explore your current planet, develop your tech and capabilities with the resources around you, and eventually explore other planets in the solar system. It's a very relaxing game, and although you can get pretty complicated in the late game, and you have the option to explore some in-depth automation tech, you could also just play the game for the exploration, and you don't have to think super hard. It's a super chill game with excellent music, and it's a must-have to install if you have Game Pass. PowerWash Simulator is probably one of the most relaxing games you can possibly play right now. The game originally launched, and I thought it was a bit of a novelty thing and wasn't all too interested in it, but the game made some serious waves and it got a lot of attention in the community. I don't really have all too much to say about the game in general, considering the point of the game is to take on various jobs, get paid, and then use that in-game money to buy better equipment. Now, this game originally was just single player, but they added multiplayer support some time ago, and I think it just makes the game better. You can goof around with friends and have fun that way, or honestly, you could just hop in a Discord chat, throw some music on, and just have a relaxing gaming session with your friends. Either works great in this game, and considering it's included with Game Pass, I really think this one is worth having installed on your computer. You know, Gunfire Reborn is a bit of an overlooked roguelite that I think really deserves some more attention. Sure, everyone knows about Hades and Risk of Rain 2, but I think with some friends, Gunfire Reborn is right up there with those, in its own way. The game is a first-person single-player or up to 4-player co-op game where you can play as various different characters, all with their own unique abilities, and you fight through levels and areas, beating all kinds of bosses to eventually try and beat the game. All of the levels are procedurally generated, which works well for replayability, and I gotta say that the gameplay in this one is actually extremely solid, and it gets pretty challenging, honestly. The bosses especially can be pretty rage-inducing at times, which I feel we kinda secretly like when it comes to roguelike games. If you like these sorts of games and can convince some of your friends to install it with you, I think Gunfire Reborn can be one of those games that you play for hours and hours with your friends. If you like games like Space Engineers, Satisfactory, or any other physics-based sandbox game, Trailmakers is going to be another game that you'll want to add to your list. This game especially is one that is really fun with friends, so I highly recommend jumping into multiplayer and trying those aspects of it. So, Trailmakers is a sandbox building game where you and your friends can create cars, rockets, mechs, and flying drone/submarine hybrids. I mean, you think it and you can probably create it in Trailmakers. The physics and capabilities are actually very impressive. Not only do you have a crazy amount to create and play around with in the sandbox mode, but there are also single player and multiplayer modes that you can play either alone or with friends, obviously. Oh, and there is a campaign too where you need to use your brain to build your method of exit out of an alien planet. Overall, it's a really great game, and I have such good memories with the game. I highly recommend trying it out. Sea of Thieves has been and always will be a classic in my book. The game is so wholesome and fun, and if you like games that are built for messing around, then this game is for you. Now, it did have a rough launch, and I gotta admit that affected my view on the game, but to be honest, I still poured in a good amount of hours into the game, even at the state it was at on launch. I even bought the game on Steam again later on. The amount of quests and storylines the game features now is insane, and it's such a great value. It reminds me of No Man's Sky, and how that game redeemed itself over the years. The same with Sea of Thieves. The game was lacking substance when it launched, but now you have hours and hours of content. Not to mention, the water is still the best looking water I've ever seen in any game, and you get to fight the Kraken and other sea creatures. It's a really fun experience if you haven't tried it out yet, and if you haven't played it since launch, I suggest you try it out with some friends again, because it'll surprise you how far the game has really come. I think this is great timing to feature Valheim in this list, considering at the time of this recording, the new update has just been released and you now have an even bigger world and more things to do. Valheim was and is such an incredible and unique experience. I remember when the game was first released, I think I ended up streaming the game for like 6 hours or something crazy like that. It not only has some of the most relaxing vibes and music, but it's got great crafting and a building system that's really comprehensive. And you have some actual progression in the game. You have bosses to beat, dangerous areas to explore, secret caves and crypts to find, and an overall really well-developed survival game. I am so impressed by this game. It almost feels rare for a game like this to be released nowadays. It's super wholesome and unlike any other game I've played. Also, another big benefit is that the game isn't hard to run at all, and it takes up hardly any memory, so it's accessible to a lot of people. If you haven't tried Valheim yet, or maybe you have and it's been a while since you've jumped back in, I say it's worth giving a try and experiencing what the game has to offer. Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you were all able to find some great titles to get with a friend or two. As always, we couldn't possibly get all the amazing games out on Game Pass on this list. If there are any more that you know of, please let us know in the comments below. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next video.